Mel Gibson isn't just stirring the pot, he's flipping it over. His latest film, Sound of Freedom, has ignited fierce controversy within Hollywood, highlighting his relentless critique of woke culture and the industry's hypocrisies. So why is Hollywood so desperate to silence this film? And how is Gibson exposing the industry's double standards without backing down? Stay tuned, because the answers could radically shift your perspective on Hollywood. Mel Gibson's latest film, Sound of Freedom, has become a lightning rod of controversy within Hollywood. Known for his fearless approach to storytelling and unflinching views, Gibson isn't new to stirring up strong reactions. From his iconic performances in Mad Max and Braveheart to his Oscar-winning work as a director, Mel Gibson has solidified his place in cinematic history. But his journey has been far from smooth. Once a darling of Hollywood, Gibson didn't fade into obscurity like some might expect. Instead, he became a vocal critic of the industry. About 6 years ago, during a candid interview with John Lithgow, Gibson shared his unfiltered thoughts on woke culture, a movement originally rooted in addressing social injustices. However, Gibson argued that what began as a noble cause had morphed into something restrictive and stifling. In his eyes, woke culture has become a force that enforces conformity and silences creativity, much like a rigid orthodoxy that casts out anyone who dares to deviate from its rules. He likens it to priests condemning those who fail to meet their rigid standards of correctness. Today, this cultural clash is more evident than ever, with Hollywood becoming a battleground where political correctness, social activism, and box ticking take precedence over authentic storytelling. Yet, this is where Gibson draws the line. He believes storytelling should be bold, raw, and unafraid to tackle uncomfortable truths. That's exactly what Sound of Freedom delivers. It's not just another Hollywood movie, it's a powerful, unapologetic spotlight on the grim reality of child trafficking, particularly in Latin America. This raw and disturbing subject matter doesn't align with the sanitized, politically curated narratives Hollywood prefers. Instead of following the industry's playbook, the film unapologetically challenges it, tearing it apart at its very foundation. This film's unapologetically challenges it, tearing it apart at its very foundation. Unlike the typical Hollywood productions that play it safe, Sound of Freedom compels audiences to face uncomfortable truths head-on. It's raw, honest, and unyielding, a story that's as hard-hitting as it is uncomfortable. Predictably, major studios distanced themselves from the film, hoping it would fade into obscurity. But Gibson and his team had other plans. Plans that ensured the story would not only be seen, but heard across the globe. What sets Sound of Freedom apart is its unflinching commitment to truth, however uncomfortable that truth may be. Unlike the glossy, risk-averse films typically produced in Hollywood, this movie refuses to sugarcoat its message. It's raw, dark, and hauntingly real, a stark contrast to the polished, safe stories that dominate the industry. Unsurprisingly, major studios wanted no association with it. They avoided the film entirely, seemingly hoping it would vanish without making a ripple. But Mel Gibson wasn't about to let that happen. Instead of bowing to industry pressure, Gibson and his team executed a brilliant strategy that turned Hollywood's indifference into the film's greatest strength. Rather than releasing Sound of Freedom in one big push, they opted for a staggered international rollout. This unconventional tactic wasn't just a clever marketing move, it was a game changer. It created a sustained buzz, keeping the film at the forefront of discussions for weeks, even months. This calculated approach didn't just draw attention to the movie, it ignited conversations. People began to ask the uncomfortable questions that Hollywood wanted to avoid. Why was a film tackling such a significant issue being overlooked by major studios? What was the industry so afraid of? The movie's impact was seismic. It wasn't just about the harrowing story of child trafficking, it became a rallying cry against Hollywood's tendency to prioritize narratives that align with their woke agenda. For many, Sound of Freedom symbolized a rebellion against the status quo, a call to focus on storytelling that matters, rather than ticking ideological boxes. At the heart of this rebellion was Mel Gibson himself, a filmmaker unafraid to challenge the system. Hollywood's response was predictably hostile. They didn't just dismiss the film, they actively tried to silence it, employing the same tactics used to marginalize dissenting voices. Yet, like so many times before, Gibson stood firm. Refusing to be muted, he continued to champion the film and its message, ensuring it couldn't be ignored. Stokes revitalized the film adaptation of Horton and the Mystery School by showing it in schools, like so many times before. refusing to be ignored. Rather than retreating under pressure, Mel Gibson took the fight head-on, becoming the loudest advocate for sound of freedom. He used every platform available to him, speaking out against an industry that loudly proclaims its commitment to social justice, yet remains conspicuously silent on issues like child trafficking. For Gibson, this wasn't just about the film. It was about exposing Hollywood's double standards and hypocrisy. In interviews, he didn't mince words. Gibson criticized the overwhelming influence of woke culture in Hollywood, pointing out how it prioritizes political agendas over authentic storytelling. According to him, the rules of the game are clear: align with the narrative or be cast out. But Gibson knows this all too well. He's already been on the outside, and now he's back with a vengeance, using his platform to challenge the status quo. One of Gibson's most powerful accusations is Hollywood's glaring hypocrisy. The same people who rush to cancel anyone who strays from the narrative are the ones who turn a blind eye when it suits their interests. In one interview, Gibson even called out a prominent producer, exposing the rot beneath Hollywood's polished facade. As for Sound of Freedom, reactions were polarized. While some lauded the film for its courage and unflinching portrayal of child trafficking, others dismissed it as sensationalist or fear-mongering. Why? Because its message didn't align with Hollywood's preferred narrative. Ironically, Hollywood's attempts to downplay or suppress the film only fueled its success. The backlash sparked curiosity, prompting people to delve deeper into the story and its implications. It quickly became apparent that Hollywood's real concern was not the issue at hand, but preserving its own image. Mel Gibson, however, refuses to conform. He's not interested in making films that are merely safe or politically correct. Instead, he focuses on stories that matter, ones that challenge, provoke, and force audiences to confront uncomfortable truths. In doing so, he has positioned himself not just as a filmmaker, but as a disruptor in an industry that seems increasingly out of touch. Take Hacksaw Ridge as a prime example. The film tells the extraordinary true story of Desmond Doss, a medic during World War II who saved 75 soldiers without ever picking up a weapon. Unlike the polished, glamorized war stories Hollywood often churns out, Hacksaw Ridge was unfiltered and unapologetically raw. It didn't sugarcoat the horrors of war or shy away from emotional depth, and that's precisely why it resonated with audiences. The film wasn't just a box office hit, it earned widespread critical acclaim, even landing Mel Gibson another Oscar nomination for Best Director. More than that, Hacksaw Ridge proved a powerful point. Viewers crave authentic, meaningful stories, not just those tailored to fit a politically correct mold. But success like this doesn't sit well with Hollywood. The industry, notorious for its double standards, isn't exactly cheering for Gibson. Why? Because he's one of the few who dares to call out their hypocrisy. Hollywood has a track record of protecting its own when scandals arise, often sweeping things under the rug when it's convenient. Yet, when someone like Gibson challenges the narrative or dares to step out of line, the reaction is swift and unforgiving. The double standards are glaring. For instance, look at how Hollywood responded when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was linked to a child kidnapping conspiracy. Instead of holding him accountable or even addressing the situation, the industry chose to remain silent. Hollywood's inconsistent reactions are telling. While some rallied to defend Johnson, others simply distanced themselves, all without much public commentary. But when it comes to Gibson, the backlash is relentless. Every time he criticizes woke culture or points out the industry's flaws, he's met with hostility. This contrast speaks volumes about the current state of Hollywood. It's an industry that claims to champion justice and equality, but often contradicts its own principles when it suits its agenda. Gibson, however, refuses to play by their rules, continuing to challenge the system while staying true to his vision. Hollywood's double standards couldn't be more evident, but here's the bottom line: Mel Gibson refuses to back down. He's witnessed the industry's hypocrisy firsthand, faced its wrath, and come out stronger than ever. For Gibson, it's not just about making movies. It's about exposing the corruption within Hollywood and fighting to restore authenticity to storytelling. Mel isn't just challenging Hollywood's woke agenda, he's forcing the world to question its priorities. While Hollywood clings to its politically correct narratives, Mel is standing firm, daring to push back. And he's not alone. More people are waking up to the industry's contradictions, ready to join the fight for creative freedom and truth. So what does this mean for the future of Hollywood? One thing is certain: Mel Gibson isn't going anywhere. He's proven that real stories, courage, and a commitment to principles will always resonate, no matter how much pushback they face. Now it's your turn. Is your turn a bold hero fighting for creative integrity, or is he simply out of step with modern Hollywood? Share your thoughts in the comments below.